sink into that head. The past should stay buried in dead. You better listen to what Johnny Araya said.
Hello and welcome to the Ray Show podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Araya, and I'm here with my multi-talented co-host, Mr. Jack Slayton. How are you, sir?
Doing good.
Right on, man. Well, we've got a killer episode tonight. We have the mighty Brittany Elliott on the show. Very special guest, a friend of ours, a badass tattoo artist, a badass furniture maker, a podcaster, and just an all-around just great spirit for metal. We're going to have her on tonight to discuss her career and also her podcast, The Haunted Chapel, that she does with her partner, Johnny Araya. And we're going to have Johnny on here soon in a couple of weeks, but we wanted to unleash Brittany on you first of all, and you guys are going to have a blast with this chat. So we met Brittany. Well, I've known Brittany for some years. I met her out at a festival, and then Jack finally got to meet her this year. What is your reflections on Brittany and Johnny and their awesomeness?
Oh, super cool people. Both have very genuine, warm energy. Great to hang out with. Great to meet.
Right on. Well, we'll have that chat up for you here in just a second with Brittany, and I know you're going to want to check out all their killer links and everything that they've got, because you need to follow this podcast. It's so killer, so much fun. The Haunted Chapel, again. But we are about 1 week away now from our first live show here at Cine Athens. The information should be up for how you can attend now on our socials, and it will be on our website, and also you can check on athenscine.com. We're doing this in conjunction with Athens Cine, so it's really exciting. It's going to be a really fun night out. We've got, for our first two guests, we've got the mighty She, He, He. They're going to talk about some new songs they've been recording and all kinds of fun shit. And then we've also got, for our comic that night, Miss Farrah Johnson. So what do you think, Jack? You looking forward to this?
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's been in the works for a long time now, and it's really exciting to finally be gearing up to start this endeavor. It's going to be wild, and yeah.
Yeah, and it's supposed to capture this post-midnight feeling. We're going to try and do it at 9 p.m. of just kind of living here in Athens and going and seeing bands and being exposed to all kinds of cool art and all kinds of cool things. So this first one you'll be able to see. We're not going to live stream this first one, but it'll be up the next day or so. So it'll be like you were there. But from then on, and we'll be announcing the subsequent shows coming up, the one for November and one for December, you'll be able to live stream from your home. So all that information will be up for you soon. But without further ado, let's get to our badass special guest tonight, Brittany Elliott. Johnny Araya with the Ray Show podcast, and man, I have got a killer guest on tonight. One of my friends, Brittany Elliott, who is a badass tattooer, furniture mogul, podcaster, and just all-around credit to heavy metal. It's such a pleasure to have her tonight. How are you doing, Brittany?
Well, my goodness, thank you, Johnny. I didn't know you felt that way about me. I'm doing so good. Thank you so much. You are awesome.
Oh, likewise, and it's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. And just right out of the gate, I want to ask you about you and Johnny's podcast, The Haunted Chapel. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, it started because Johnny's sister was saying, Johnny, you have got to start a podcast of all your road stories. So John has been on the tour or on tour his whole life in the touring world since he was 15. His older brother's in Slayer, as probably a lot of people know. So he was there in the Slayer garage from the minute he was born, basically, and just kind of born into metal. And he's just got so many awesome stories. I'm like, babe, you've got to share this with the world. So sure enough, his sister lit a fire under our butts and we started it up. So we just released actually episode 5.
Yes.
With the Tardy brothers from Obituary. And so it's mostly like road stories, and we're gonna have some tattooers, but rock stars and friends and just people into our heavy metal lifestyle.
Yeah, and he is both of you are such a wealth of information, but having him, and he's such a sweetheart of a dude, man.
Right?
Having him talk about these one amazing experiences, and y'all having this such a wealth of information, and it really puts people into those years that so many people are so, interested in, especially, in heavy metal.
Yes. And the behind the scenes aspect is so cool because there's so much we see as fans that, they've really got the deeper look into it. And we're just like, wow, that's just so cool. Whereas to someone like Johnny that's been in it his whole life, he's like, oh, that's just James Hetfield. No big deal.
Right.
Whereas we're just like, what? So it's pretty cool.
And Johnny being a badass musician in his own right, as well. So it's such a unique perspective, to go into. But how did, I want to just say, how did you and Johnny meet?
Awesome question. Okay, so this is just crazy. So I'm pretty old school as far as tattooing goes, and so I do everything just through classic email. I don't have a appointment booking site or an assistant or anything like that. I do everything myself. And so I'm checking my email one day, and it says John Araya. I'm like, Araya? John Araya? That's Tom's little brother. I'm like, I've never heard that name outside of Slayer. And so I checked the email and it was like, hi, I will be in town from this date to this day. I'll be on the road coming through town and wanted to see if you had time to tattoo me. And I was like, gosh, I was working at a tattoo convention and I already had it booked. And I was like, no, I'm not going to be in town. And I was like, by any chance, are you like the Johnny Araya? And well, at the end of the email, it said Slayer Crew. I'm like, yeah, you're John Araya, right? And so I was like, okay. Yeah, so I knew Slayer was coming. Slayer had broken up that last tour into 2 legs. And so I had already seen him in Dallas and Austin. So I opted out of the San Antonio show and booked a convention. Sure enough, he contacted me. And then, so a year later, he contacted me again. Hey, I'm coming through town. And so he had been trying to get tattooed for a few years. And finally we met up we met up in El Paso, and he didn't have time to get tattooed. And I wound up tattooing someone else on the crew. And he was like, you know what? Here's a pass. You can come to any show on the tour.
Oh,
and I'm
mad.
I'm just a lifelong Slayer fan going, what is my life right now? Right. And
right.
So anyway, I went to a couple of shows and he was just busy. He worked, the shows. And then I just kind of stood by and watched the show. And then I finally tattooed him in Detroit. And it was just kind of like I met my long lost best friend. It was so cool. And then a couple months later, after they got back from Europe, he wrote me and was like, I really would like to spend more time with you. You were so cool. And I was like, you were too. And so that was it. We hung out a second time and never left each other's side.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
And seeing the two of you together, you just complement each other so well. And there's just this joy coming from both of you when you hang out with them. And that when I hang out with you guys, it's just like so special. Well, let's go back a little further. Let's go. How did you get into metal? And I mean, what was the record that just like spurred you?
Oh, wow. Great question. I think probably the record was Ride the Lightning, Metallica.
God, yes.
Yeah. So as a kid, I was just Metallica obsessed. I mean, I was born in 87, so it was early 90s. It was just hard radio rock. I was just super into, my mom was super into Alice in Chains. My dad was into 70s hard rock. And so my mom introduced me to Metallica and Typo and Alice and, more 90s and grunge. She loved Dokken and hair metal and stuff like that too. But my dad was all, Sabbath and Riot and stuff like that. So I got the best of both worlds. Both of my parents were straight up hellion rock and rollers. And I was very, very lucky that they introduced me to it. Since I was born, we were listening to records in the house.
That's so is similar to my upbringing. You know, it's so awesome to hear that your father turned you on to Riot. I love Riot so much. And I was listening to Ride the Lightning just the other day. Fight Fire with Fire could be the most metal song of all time. Just such a badass
that opening riff.
Oh, when it gets to the "You All Shall Die," I mean, I'm just ready to just march into the metal wars or whatever.
Dude, right?
Yeah,
I second that. Actually, I have a younger brother who passed, Michael, and when he was 7 years old. Yeah, man, we won't get into all that drama, but yeah, bless his soul. He was my best friend in life, and when he was 7 years old, he said, "Sister, I want Ride the Lightning CD, my own Ride the Lightning CD." And so I bought him that record. And then when he turned 18, I wound up doing a full sleeve of all Metallica and Merciful Fate stuff on him. But it was mostly all Ride the Lightning. It was the guy in the electric chair. Then he got Jump in the Fire, of course. But he was just Metallica obsessed. So that was really special to me.
Yeah, and that going into I met you some years ago at a festival. When did you start going to the center, to like going to these big music festivals and just being a part of it? Or have you always just
Well, the one I met you in Vegas, I have been going to since it started in California, and I think it was 2013. I was working for St. Vitus, and I was doing merch for St. Vitus and just helping them out. And, I met those guys and just really loved the festival and just kept going to that one. And then, as I was touring with Wino and St. Vitus and his other band, Spirit Caravan, they wound up taking me to Europe and went to Hellfest and all these crazy festivals. So I guess, and so I've been going to concerts since I was 13. So I snuck out at 13 and was grounded for the rest of my life after that, after I got busted. But I went to, that was Ozfest 2001. I snuck out to see Marilyn Manson and Black Sabbath. And that changed my life.
Oh yeah. Seeing Sabbath on those, Bill Ward and the band, so amazing. I mean,
yes.
So how does that lead to, were you always into drawing and art?
Great question. Yes. I mean, I can't remember a time where I wasn't doodling. I mean, it started with band logos, my bookcases, fold your own book covers and, wrap your books up, something kids will never understand because it's all on tablets. We would just scribble on our books and hope that it didn't imprint the book to where you had to pay for it at the end of the year. And so it started with that. And man, I've just always been into doodling and drawing and art. And my mom took me to a tattoo convention when I was 14, and it just blew my mind seeing women walking around completely tattooed like I am now. I was like, I want to look like that.
Yes.
So that was it.
Well, your artwork is so like amazing. It's like metal based, and you recreate these album covers, and just completely dazzles me when I see some of the things you've posted. Now, have you ever interacted with some of the artists whose artwork you've recreated? Have you developed any relationships with any of these folks that you you do these wonderful tattoos? I'm talking about that Killers tattoo the other day. My God.
Like Derek Riggs, for example.
Yeah.
No, I've never actually personally connected with Derek, but I've heard that he does Comic-Cons. So I've got to look out. I always tag him and give him credit because he's such a master. I mean, I could never take credit for. I mean, I could take credit for the applying the tattoo, I guess, but he's so amazing. I don't even really try to change his stuff up much. I may stylize it a little bit to make it more tattooable. But he's just such an incredible artist, and he's untouchable. He's one of my heroes. He's amazing.
Yeah. The detail on Somewhere in Time, I used to stare at that for hours, just on the back cover, and just every little detail, every little Easter egg in it. And I hate that that's a lost art, but I do like it that vinyl's, hopefully still in the zeitgeist and kids still buy records because they're missing out on so much, like half of it, But now you've also, do you tattoo touring bands regularly? Have you become a stop where a lot of bands are like, hey, we're going through Texas, I'm going to go see Brittany?
Yes, and I'm so grateful for that. It's awesome. Just the people that reach out to me, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's how I met Johnny. Like I said, it's just so cool. And I feel like I've been tattooing since 2007, and I was 19 when I started apprenticing. and I'm 35 now. And so I've tattooed pretty much my whole life. And, I've just kind of always done my own thing. And it's cool that people are finding me. Like for example, I had with my furniture stuff, I had Jesse James reach out to me recently to make a table for his wife. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what an honor that Jesse James, the master of rebuilding classic cars and just the master of making shit, is interested in something that I make. That
right on.
that just made me feel like, wow, all my hard work like has paid off, and whether monetarily or not, like most artists struggle financially because we tend to give everything away because it's such a labor of love what we do, and you can't really put a price on your time. But for somebody like that you really kind of look up to their work to notice you, like someone like Johnny that, I respect his work that he's done with touring so much, and then he respects my work. It's just such a cool thing that, bands that I love and respect are finding me and reaching out to me. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And you have a special way, especially with King Diamond tattoos. Has he seen any of this work?
I'm not sure that King has seen any of the tattoos that I've done actually of him. I did a Merciful Fate poster for that last festival that he played, and it was such a gentleman. He goes, they weren't able to print the artwork for the festival because we ran out of time, but King Diamond was so cool. He said, he didn't even want a percentage. He just wanted 5 copies for himself. And he said, you know what? I just want 3 copies. I'll sign the other 2 and give them back to you.
Oh, that's so
great. That was unbelievable to me. And just the fact that he was like, this is great. This is wonderful. And he liked the art and thought it was cool because, obviously I'm a true fan because I put some like really kind of weird references to songs and stuff in there. So like you kind of had to know the music. So I think he probably chuckled when he saw it. So that to me was just like, awesome. I'm not worthy. And then I ran into him one time while I was watching Flotsam and Jetsam play. He just walked into a small little venue in Dallas called Trees. And I saw him and went over. I'm like, oh my gosh, I knew this day would happen. Right. Of course, he's not in makeup or anything. And I went up to him and tapped his security and said, I'm a huge fan. I just pointed at my tattoo. And so security grabbed him and pointed at me, and he smiled and perked up. So I have a couple photos from that dangerous meeting, which was he was just such a gentleman and so cool.
Oh yeah. I finally met him out in Vegas, and he's probably one of about 3 human beings that would spook me in a way, like just make me. And he couldn't have been sweeter. He couldn't have been nicer. And he's a fan. He's still a fan, and it's just so great that you have that. I would recommend anyone thinking about getting a King Diamond tattoo or Merciful Fate. You should definitely go to Brittany.
Thank you. And I might even dress up and paint my face.
There you go. That would make it extra. I love that about you, and I feel like both me and you are we're just these cheerleaders for heavy metal. It's just like we live it, we breathe it, and it's such a special group of people, and it's such a diverse musically, genre, and people sometimes miss that aren't as into it as we are. But
Absolutely.
what I'm got just a few more here. We both travel and work these events regularly. What's a particularly memorable night that this life has afforded you with the tattooing and being involved in this wonderful music?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. Well, I'm going to say if one memory comes to mind in particular, the first memory would be tattooing Johnny. And I had to tattoo him in his hotel room, and there was minimal lighting. Hotel rooms are very dimly lit. So he was awkwardly shining his phone on the tattoo. And boy, I just felt like I just jacked the tattoo up. I was sweating bullets. Slayer's they're my favorite band my whole life. I'm tattooing Tom's little brother, who's been there since he was 15, in a but dimly lit hotel room. And he and I barely spoke 20 words to each other at that point, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is I'm just fucking blowing this, right? And so I finished the tattoo, and It looks good, but then afterward, he's like, "Hey, you hungry?" And I'm really hungry. I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You want to go down the bus and like get some snacks?" And so he took me on Slayer's bus, and we raided their cupboards and took a bunch of Pop-Tarts. And he took this hilarious photo of me sitting there with a Pop-Tart in my hand, and he was like, "This is just great. I wanted to get tattooed by you for years, and now you're eating Slayer's Pop-Tarts." And so that was just I was sitting there with a grin on my face. I said, "I just can't believe this is my life. I just tattooed Johnny Araya, and I'm eating Slayer's Pop-Tarts."
Yeah, and how is it peeking behind the curtain when you have a band like Slayer? I've been fortunate. All the bands that I'm really big fans of, when I've interviewed them, they've been nothing but great. So how was it to peek behind the curtain of that kind of and experience it?
Well, it was really great at first, and then I got to know a little bit of the drama, and I'll just leave it at that. And I wish I didn't know what I knew now about that particular band. So because they are one of my bands that I would now say that they were my favorite bands, because I know too much personal stuff. So that it's a blessing and a curse, I would say. But then again, I've been behind, backstage with bands that are just the coolest people in the world, would give any fan the shirt off their back, and like are truly just grateful, awesome, humble people.
Right.
And so being behind the scenes is cool, but I'm such a fan that, like, for example, Johnny got us tickets and passes to go backstage at Megadeth, and he was like, "Let's go meet Dave, let's go back there." And I'm like, "Dude, no, like, I don't want to be in their personal space. I feel like that's kind of their space,
Right.
But he's so used to just being behind the scenes. He's not used to being in the crowd like we are, so it's normal for him. Whereas it's not really necessarily normal for me, but it's cool and it's great. But I've met a couple of people like Ace Frehley, who was just my rock god,
God.
you're in Kiss, and he was just in a really sour mood, and I have a tattoo of him, and I was like, "Could you please sign my tattoo?" And he just signed it real quick and was like, "Next." And I was just so crushed and heartbroken, I was just like, but then again, he's Ace Frehley. He doesn't owe me anything.
Yeah. But it's got to be heartbreaking when you're such a fan. You've got their music imprinted on your heart, and just, I hate that about Ace. But you know what? The music's still there, and still rocking.
Amen to that.
Now, how did you get into furniture? And Brittany does these amazing metal-inspired like furniture pieces, like tables, and just How did you start doing this?
Okay, well, I'll tell you exactly how it happened. I was sitting on my couch one day, and I was looking at the ceiling and just contemplating life, and I had a giant Subway-sized Black Sabbath poster on the ceiling that was the exact size of my giant dull coffee table, and I thought, man, what if I could somehow fix that Black Sabbath poster on this table? So I was looking up and looking down and looking up. And sure enough, I was like, yeah, I'm making this happen. So the next day, that was my project, and the rest is history. I was like, this is so killer. So a friend of mine liked it so much, they commissioned me to make one. And then it was a Kiss table, and then he commissioned me to make another one, and then another one. And then I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to revamp all my furniture in my house. And so then I was really just doing it for myself and for friends. And I had made a couple Van Halen tables like as gifts for friends that were just like obsessed with Van Halen.
Right.
And it just kind of took off. And then I started a little rock shop and tattoo shop for a while, and I would stock the store full of them, and I just couldn't keep them in stock. I'm like, this is crazy, so now I have to do giveaways because I can't make enough tables to keep people happy, because there's just one of me. And I don't want to, unfortunately, I'm selfish, and I don't want to teach anyone, because I've had a couple people already, rip off my idea. Not necessarily, I'm sure I didn't start this, but it's kind of my baby. Like, I got kind of bored with tattooing for a little while after I was on this silly TV show. I was just like, man, everyone's tattooing now. Like, that's why I wanted to tattoo, was because it was kind of a pirate's life. It was just kind of outlaw shit, when I was really getting into it. And I just wanted to do something different that set me apart, like I thought tattooing did in the beginning. And then it became so commonplace. I was like, okay, this is it. So I kind of found my niche with these cool furniture pieces, and now here we are.
Yeah. Well, how did you find your experience on TV? How did how was that experience? Let's just say that.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. Like I didn't want to do it. I honestly have not even owned a TV in my adult life. And I'm always working. I'm very analog. I come home, I jam records and I draw for the next day, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just very analog type person. And, so they approached me at a tattoo convention and begged me to be on it. I kept telling them no. And then finally I agreed. Because my mom had just passed. This was 2012. My mom passed, and my dad was just really struggling and lost our childhood home. And I was like, you know what? It's $100,000 prize. If I go and I win, I'm gonna buy my dad a house, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
And so I went, and kind of like Happy Gilmore, you know, it's totally like that. And so I went, and it was crazy. I had to move to Hollywood for 2.5 months, and it was fun. And in hindsight, I don't regret it. At the time, I was like, I'm such a douche for doing this. I'm such a sellout, you know, and had a lot of like people in my peer group and people in the tattoo community. There's haters in everywhere you go, but I was 100% authentic. I was myself. And so I felt like, you know, if people are going to hate on me for doing what I do for a living and for trying to better myself and to help my dad out, then that's their problem, you know.
Absolutely.
So I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. It was tough at times, and quite honestly, when it came out, I had kind of like not a breakdown, but I got really like sucked into reading the comments about and like online, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, people are awful. Like I couldn't relate to that because I'm not a hater. Like I build up my fellow human being that's doing cool stuff or trying to better themselves, you know. And
right.
So it was really damaging to my soul, just the aftermath of just seeing how ugly humanity could be. So that's when Wino asked me to go on tour with them in 2013, early 2013. So I hit the road with St. Vitus and Spirit Caravan and kind of took like a year break and just tattooed here and there. And it was really good for my soul to be around Wino and to be around that positivity and just in a different world. And then I was so recharged to get ready to, you know, to get back to work once I got off tour. So I think it was cool.
Yeah, and did they keep you sequestered? Could you sneak down to the rainbow for some fun, or?
Dude, okay, great question. So yes, you're completely sequestered, and we were in a hotel, so we didn't get to like be in a house together and hang out. And so if they found out that you even leave your room, because obviously you're locked out once you leave, you can't even have a key to your own room, and they confiscate your cell phone, which I loved because I'm just like in the room drawing and, you know, trying to do push-ups and sit-ups to stay in shape because everyone's talking about how you look fat on TV, you know?
Right.
So I'm just, you know, trying to just kind of zen and meditate and just, you know, enjoy the experience, I guess. But yeah, we were totally sequestered, which it made for good TV because it gets you kind of crazy. You get a little stir crazy, and then you're kind of aggro when you get on the set, and it's pretty funny.
Oh, I could only imagine if I didn't have my weed by like 9 a.m, I'd just be screaming. I would just, yeah. So,
yeah.
Well, what are your now? What are your future plans with the podcast? Are you guys? Who we got some guests coming up? We got some cool stuff on the tap coming up here soon.
Yes, actually, we have. So our next guest is going to be a pretty famous tattoo artist that we are friends with. Actually, somebody from Best Ink. So I won't spoil that. But yeah, it's somebody from the TV show that I reconnected with, and one of the judges. I'll put that out there. So it's one of 3 people. So that's cool. So they will be coming up next, and then we're gonna get Wino on pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very stoked to talk about Wino and what he's got going on. And then we've got the almighty Pepper Keenan coming up.
Yes.
So, yeah, so we've got some really, we've got people writing us going, dude, we want to be on. And we're like, dude, you're fucking Pepper Keenan, of course, duh. You're one of our best friends.
So fucking awesome. Oh, my God.
Yeah, so we're super stoked. Johnny just has so many friends from the road, and I've got so many friends through traveling and tattooing, and we're so blessed and grateful that we have so many awesome people like you in our lives. So maybe we're going to have you on.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Where's the best place that people can get to the podcast and follow you, and what any plugs that you'd like to share with us?
Sure. So the best way to access the podcast would be just thehauntedchapel.com. There should be a link right when you go to thehauntedchapel.com, all one word. And then my website is where you can see my portfolio of my tattooing and my tables is B like Brittany, Z like zebra, bztattoo.com. So bztattoo.com and thehauntedchapel.com.
Hell yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
I cannot urge people enough to listen to your podcast. I love it so much, and I'm
Dude, thank you.
And
I love yours.
Yay! I so appreciate that. But look, we'll see you soon, Brittany, and make sure maybe we can come back on here in a year or so after we get some experiences, some of these crazy festivals we go to, and
I would love
have something
that.
to talk about. But well, thank you so much for doing this and being on.
You are so welcome.
And that's our show for tonight. I want to thank Brittany so much for coming on and talking about all the cool things she's got going on in her life. And look forward to, we're going to have Johnny on the other side of the Haunted Chapel podcast. So be looking for that in the coming weeks. And stay switched on. It's Halloween time, y'all. And we'll talk to you soon.